Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. So today is another card making 101 video where we are breaking down card making and paper crafting into small kind of bite-sized chunks, and in each video we're going to be looking at something different. So if you are new to card making, you're a beginner, it's going to be perfect to give you that information that you need to get started with different elements of card making. And also if you're more advanced, it might be new things that you haven't tried before and just hints and tips along the way. So there's definitely going to be something for everybody. So in today's video we are looking at shaped cards, a few different ways that you can do that and how you put these together. So we're going to look at 3 different shaped card bases. We've got hexagons, ovals and circles. So these are the 3 most common shaped card bases that I create, especially for my commissions. If you see them in the magazines, we try to make as many different sizes and shaped cards as possible to give you some nice variety. But it might be that you've never created a shaped card like this before, in which case then definitely give it a go. They're really easy to make, and again it's just something a little bit more interesting, something a little bit different. So the first way you could make one of these shaped cards is by using a pre-made card base. So this is just a 6x6 inch card base that I've got here, and what's good about using a pre-made card base is you can make use of the fold that's already in there. You don't need to do any scoring and gluing together. So there's a few ways that you can then turn this into, for example, a circle card. You could simply draw around a circle shape if you've got a small plate, anything that you've got lying around, and that goes for any shaped items as well that you want to draw around. You can then just simply draw around it. But the main thing you want to do, like I said, is make use of your fold line here. So just for example, I've got this circle nesting die just to hand. So if you wanted to draw around something, what you want to do is make sure that the top of your circle, for example, is going to be hanging over this fold, and that is going to give you an actual card base. So if, for example, if I just draw around this circle die here, then that can be my card base template there, and I can simply just cut this out with scissors, and then I have my fold here. So that's a super easy way, and you can create this to be any size card base that you've got. You know, you can use all of that space if you want to, but just make sure that you are overhanging on your fold there. If you do have any nesting dies and you want to create a card again using a pre-made card base, you're just going to die cut it again and you're going to hang it over that edge. So just to show you what this is going to look like, I'm going to die cut this with this circle die here. I've just added some tape to hold that in place, and again you can see there where my die is overhanging to still give me that fold in the card. And with this you want to die cut it like this. You want it to go through both layers. So now we've run this through the die cutting machine. This is now going to create our card base for us. You can see the indents there on the back where it has started to go through both pieces of this pre-made card base. But one of the things that you want to make sure is that it is going through it to give you that perfect card base. What I find sometimes is you need to add an extra shim into your die cutting sandwich just to make sure that it's going to go through both layers of this. So that is a little bit of a downside for me personally, is that when I add the extra pressure, or even you know, if you get the pressure right the first time, it can leave the indentations from your cutting plate onto your card base. So what that's going to do is make it look a little messier, I would say, because you are having those indents sort of around your card, whereas I want to have a nice smooth card base to work with. But again, it really depends on your sandwich combination for your die cutting machine and how you kind of use your plates to die cut. You might not find that that happens for you, but that is something to be wary of. So let's carefully take off our die here, like so, and then we're going to remove this. So we can see that it's gone through certainly this top layer, but we're just going to carefully try and remove it from our pre-made card base. So like so. So this is our wastage here, and then we have our circle card base. Now, the one thing that you'll notice straight away is because we've come off the top of our hinge here, that it's not given us that full circle shape. Now, that might not be a problem for you at all, but I certainly, when I'm creating shaped cards like this, certainly with the circles, is I want to make sure that I have that full circle look. When you come to add your mats and layers and things onto cards like this, you need to consider how that's going to look with your hinge. Now, you might not think that you want to have it as big as that, so this is about 2¼ inches of my hinge at the top, but what you want to make sure is you're creating a nice sturdy card base. You want it to stand up, you want it to, you know, have the test of opening and closing, so you don't want to have a really small flimsy area there for your hinge. But you can see how it opens up there, and you've got that really great card base. Now, what you could do if you wanted to hide this piece here is you could die cut another circle piece just from one piece of cardstock, and you could add that layer on top, and hopefully there you can see the back, so it's just adding that piece in there that's missing, and then you have a full circle sheet. Now I'm going to show you another way of creating shaped dies, and this is how I create mine. I find it the easiest way to create them, and also then I get that full shape as well that I was talking about. So how I make mine is using my nesting dies. So if you've been watching me for a little while, you know that I've got quite a few of these nesting dies now. Most of these are by Creative Craft products, which I will leave a link to in the description box down below. But I like to use these to create my shaped cards because not only is it another way of using your nesting dies, but also because you've got all of your mats and layers, shapes and sizes ready to go here. So with things like the ovals, I'm not trying to worry about how I'm going to make them fit, what sizes I need to create. I've literally got all the mats and layers that I need. So I could create the largest, and I could just keep coming down in sizes for my mats and layers. So these are sort of the typical ones that I do create. So we've got the stitched hexagon here, which adds a lovely stitched detail. We have the scalloped oval dies here. For my circle dies, I do use these. These are the Hefty Doodle stitched ones, which we also use to create this card using our pre-made card base. And then I do also have this example here, which is the circle scalloped edge dies as well. So another great way of using up your nesting dies, and again, like I said, you've got then your mats and layers ready to go. What I also love is you can have the different decorative edges as well, depending on what kind of card you want to make and depending on the nesting dies that you do have. Another benefit of creating card bases like this using your nesting dies is you can customize your size. So apart from this circle one here, these two are not the biggest sizes that I can create. I just picked slightly smaller sizes, but you can certainly create the biggest size using your nesting die, and you've got a huge card there, lots of real estate on there to add your mats and layers and your decoration, so it's perfect for creating those custom sizes. If you want something really tiny, you could just use one of the smallest nesting dies. And the easiest thing about this is you literally just need to die cut 2 of these shapes. So I'm going to show you how we're going to put each of these together and sort of different tips of the easiest way that I find to bring these cards together. So for the first one, we're going to start with our hexagon. So as I said, you just need to die cut 2 pieces. Now, I've die cut this out of some 300 GSM cardstock, but what you could do is die cut this from some coloured cards, patterned cards, you know, whatever it is that you want to create your card base from, and it just gives you better scope then to, again, customise the kind of cards that you want to create. So apart from the nesting dies and a die cutting machine, the only other item that you need is a scoring tool. So the scoring tool, I use this as the EK Tools one, and it's really, really simple to add a score mark to this. And the reason we're adding a score mark is to add a hinge to our card bases, but it's going to be hidden around the back. So depending on the shape of card that I am creating will depend on the size of the hinge that I'm going to create. So with this hexagon, for example, I'm going to just butt one of the straight edges up against this left hand side, and I'm probably going to go for a 1/2 inch tab. So I'm just going to score that at 1/2 inch. If you want to create a larger hinge, you absolutely can. This is just what I'm going for. Then we have got our hinge here. Now I'm just going to burnish this by pushing it back. That's how we're going to be opening it. So it's going to go to the back. You can then use different glue mediums that work best for you. I'm just going to use some liquid glue here, so we've got a little bit of wiggle time to make sure that this is nice and straight. And then I'm just going to pick up my card bases and then just pop them together, and then I'm going to add a good amount of pressure to that glued hinge. So again, this is where the wiggle room comes in handy, because we can make sure that we've got that lined up perfectly. So again, I usually just rub over it to make sure that that's going to stay together, and that's as simple as putting a shaped card base together. And the way that this opens then is the top is going to open up, and you've got sort of this hinge here where that hinge goes back. But again, that gives you that full shape card base that I do like, and it stands up exactly the same. You've just got a different style of hinge on there. You've still got space on the inside to write your message, but again, for me, it's having that full shape on the outside. So let's pop the other ones together. So next, let's look at the Scalloped Oval. So this is a slightly harder card base to kind of put together and then make sure that it's staying in place when it is stood up. Again, it's going to depend on the decoration you put on it. Do you have some decoration, you know, is one side heavier than the other? That might change how your card base will sit. But for this, again, you can either have the hinge on the left-hand side for a side opening, or you can have it at the top for a landscape side. But you can also then, you know, turn it. It really depends how you want to create these. So again, I'm just going to take one of these card bases, and I'm going to make sure that I can get it lined up as evenly as possible here. So something like that I think is good. And for this, I'm going to add, like I said, a much bigger hinge. You could literally go half and half if you wanted to. I'm going to go about 2 inches. So again, you're losing that space on the inside, but I'm absolutely okay with that. You can continue to write on the back if you want to. For me, I'm more concerned about getting the front of it right and to have it stand up nicely. So again, let's just fold this piece back. So that's the kind of real estate you've got on the inside to write your message. And then again, we're going to add some liquid glue. So it is going to rock slightly when you lift it up to find where it really wants to sit. But again, just be wary about where you're putting your decoration. If you're going to have more decoration on one side, it is going to tip. But I find this, adding that larger hinge, the easiest way to kind of stabilize a card like this. If you want to create a portrait style card, just add your score mark from side to side. Again, sort of near the halfway mark. So you have got more like an easel that is going to stand up. But again, a really fun way of creating a different size card and a different shaped card. Next up, let's do our circle. So again, this is the most common shaped card that I will create, especially when doing my commissions. So the same thing again with this, I want to make sure that I get a nice hinge on here, but I don't feel that it needs to be quite as big as what we put on our oval. So for this, I usually do about a 3/4 of an inch hinge there. Sometimes I will do half an inch. Again, it really depends what decoration I'm adding onto my cards. So again, let's just pull that piece back to add that fold in there. And that makes sure it's all nicely lined up. And then again, it's opening the same way. So you've got that hinge style there, and it is just going to sit nicely. I find with this, yeah, you don't need a particularly large hinge on these circle cards. And again, it can be on the smaller side because it will kind of find its place where it wants to sit, but it just doesn't need as big of a hinge. And lastly, just as a little bonus card, let's do this circle scalloped. So we're going to do the exact same thing again. I'm going to do 3/4 of an inch. And we're going to add that glue. So with the scalloped edge, you want to make sure that you are just lining these up. Just like so. And again, that's going to work the exact same way. You can open it up So we've got a hinge, and then we have our scalloped edge circle there. So a little hint here, you won't find this with the hexagon shaped card, because that, of course, because you've got the flat edge at the bottom, that is going to sit perfectly first time. But certainly with things like your ovals and your circles here, you might find that it is kind of tipping. We've seen it with the oval card where it's rocking from side to side. So now I'm going to give you a tip of how you can get these to sit straight, and there's two different ways you can do this. The first thing I'm going to show you is using your guillotine. If you open it up, you want to make sure that you're not you know, coming back to disrupt any of the rest of the card. But if we open it up, we're going to make sure that it's kind of lined up, and we're going to take a very, very small amount off the bottom of the card. So you really don't want to do too much here. You want to make sure I'm just lining up my score line here with the lines on my guillotine. And you can see how much we've taken off there, virtually next to nothing. So with that then, when we stand this up, it's going to stay exactly in that place. It's not rocking anymore because it's going to stand on this straight edge. So if you find that it's rocking from side to side and you don't want it to, just trim a very small amount off your back piece, and that will help stand it up. So I do this with my circle cards as well, but you can use a pair of scissors. So again, I'm just going to open that up. I'm going to make sure I've got it kind of straight in my hand, and again then I'm going to trim just the tiniest amount. You know, that is the piece that we're trimming off there. It's the tiniest amount, but it's just going to sit naturally where that is, and it's not going to, you know, rock from side to side. That is going to be the natural point of where it's going to sit. And again then we can do the same with this scalloped edge circle as well. So again, keep it nice and straight, and just trim that. You can see again, very, very little off there. So people probably wouldn't even notice it, but what it means is it's going to stand out when someone pops it onto their mantelpiece. It's going to stay up nice and straight. So it really is as easy as that to create a shaped card base. So I hope this video has encouraged you, if you've never made a shaped card base before, to go and have a go. Find something that's in your craft room or your home to draw around. Experiment with different shapes. I've given you a few different tips there in terms of creating hinges. So you should find something that's going to work with the card base that you want to create. So that is going to be it for this video. Hope you did enjoy it and you got something from this video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up for me, because it does really help to support my channel. On screen now you're seeing another video within this Card Making 101 series that I think you're going to enjoy, so please do go and check that video out. So that's going to be it for today's video. Thanks very much for watching and happy crafting.